everyone. I'm Allison Camerata. Welcome to CNN Newsroom.
I'm Victor Blackwell. CNN has received reports of large explosions in Ukraine's capital city, Kyiv. Right now, Ukraine controls the city on the fifth day of Russian attacks. A senior U.S. defense official warned that Russia could take more aggressive approach toward Kyiv. Russia is frustrated by the resistance shown by the Ukrainians. Now, the Russians continue to attack, continue to advance. A video appears to show bombs decimating a residential street in Kharkiv. That's Ukraine's second largest city. Now, Russia insists, though, it is not targeting Ukrainian civilians.
Satellite images show a 3-mile-long convoy of Russian military trucks, tanks, infantry vehicles, and artillery heading in the direction of Kyiv. The first rounds of talks between Russia and Ukraine took place today. Officials met for more than 5 hours on the Belarus border, but have now returned to their own capitals. As for what they accomplished, the Ukrainian official says they established topics for further talks in the coming days.
All right, let's turn now to Anderson Cooper in Lviv, in western Ukraine. Anderson, the war has also set off this massive refugee crisis.
Yeah, it certainly has. There were just air raid sirens here in Lviv, people being told by loudspeaker to go into their basements. The United Nations says that more than 500,000 refugees have so far fled Ukraine. We crossed over the border from Poland today. You see women and children at the border going through the lengthy procedures to cross over the border. One mother who escaped Romania said she could not hide her fear. She may not be able to return to her homeland.
We don't know how to come back. Come back with, I don't know. We're scared about our husbands, our brothers.
Well, CNN is covering the war in Europe from all angles. Clarissa Ward is in Kyiv for us tonight. Nick Robertson is in Moscow. Let's start with CNN senior national security correspondent Alex Marquardt. He is also in Kyiv, where Ukrainian officials say they are not only missile attacks, but also fighting in the streets. Alex, we've been hearing reports, large explosions. What are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, Anderson, just like where you are in Lviv, we too here in the capital have heard air raid sirens just in the past few moments. They were quite sustained. This, unfortunately, has become a familiar sound. It doesn't always indicate that there are explosions coming right after that, but that doesn't necessarily make them any less haunting. As you can see behind me, the city is quite dark. This is a city that is usually quite lit up. People, buildings keeping their lights off for security reasons. Now, earlier today, just about 2 hours ago, right as those talks ended, there were at least 3 large explosions that we could hear very clearly from here. Though at least one of them we've been able to pinpoint landing just about 11 miles or 18 kilometers away in an area on the edge of Kyiv called Brovary. So that is quite close. And Anderson, of course, Kyiv and the second biggest city in Ukraine, Kharkiv, are 2 of the biggest targets for the Russians. And we saw significant shelling in Kharkiv today in a residential area. While Russians are claiming they're not targeting civilians, this was in a residential area in the northeastern part of the city near a supermarket. It's an area called Saltivka. So the Russians clearly not letting up in their shelling of these 2 major population centers, around these 2 major population centers. We know from Ukrainian and American officials and others that those Russian forces are creeping closer to where we are right now. The Pentagon believes that Russian forces are around 25 kilometers away, and we are keeping a very close eye on this 3-mile, 5-kilometer-long convoy that is heading towards Kyiv, which we are told has all manner of tanks, artillery, weaponry, and of course, Russian troops. Now, there is a new curfew here in the capital. It went into effect around 8 p.m. Local time. The mayor says that is not only because the situation is dangerous, but also because they are going after teams of what they call Russian saboteurs. And the mayor has said in the past few days they have been able to destroy large numbers of those Russian saboteurs. Anderson, the shelling has often gotten worse at night, so it remains to be seen whether those talks that happened today will mean that it's any quieter tonight. Anderson.
Yeah, Alex, appreciate it. We'll continue to check in with you in the hours ahead. Here's one scene of survival out of Kyiv. Children battling cancer are now forced to live in a makeshift bomb shelter in the basement of a Kyiv hospital. Many Ukrainians are venturing out, trying to get supplies. They're facing long lines for the basics like groceries and medicine. Let me turn now to CNN's Clarissa Ward, who's also in Kyiv. Clarissa, what did you see today?
Well, so this was after a 36-hour curfew, Anderson, so there were quite a lot of people out on the street, most of them going out to try to get things like supplies, groceries, gas. Everywhere you went, you saw long lines snaking around the block, people waiting sometimes for more than an hour or two just to be able to get some food. But what was extraordinary, Anderson, is that there was no sign. You know, the first couple of days, people were petrified. There was a sense of shock. Today, I saw something very different. I saw resilience. I saw defiance. A lot of people carrying signs on the street saying Putin is a word that I can't say on television. Billboards saying Russian soldiers go home. How will you be able to look your children in the eye? And we also saw a huge amount of volunteers outside every municipality building. They're, you know, making sandbags, digging defensive positions, putting together Molotov cocktails, anything that they can to try to contribute in some way towards this resistance against Russian forces. And it really was remarkable to see the shift in tone and mood here on the back of, you know, several incidents where Ukrainian forces have been able to repel Russian troops trying to move into the capital. That has really buoyed spirits here. And, you know, I won't say it's a celebratory atmosphere at all. It's still scary. It's still war. And Russian forces are still making their way to the capital. You heard Alex talking about that huge column of tanks on its way here. But there is a sense now of we can fight back. And I felt really struck by that sense of confidence and optimism. Remains to be seen how long that will last, of course, Anderson, because as U.S. officials have speculated, it is entirely possible that Putin will respond to the sort of frustrations his troops have had on the battlefield by upping the ante and by launching more bombardment, more air assaults, more strikes here on the capital. That, of course, would only lead to more civilian casualties, which would undoubtedly create a very different mood on the streets. But today, there was definitely a strong sense of defiance, Anderson.
Of course, I talked to the mayor of Kyiv a couple hours ago, who was expressing concerns about a potential humanitarian crisis in terms of food supplies, medicine, things for people in need. What are you seeing? I mean, is there food on the shelves when people were standing in line today?
So one of the supermarkets we went to, there was still food on the shelves, although we went earlier on in the day. Other members of the CNN team went to different supermarkets and reported shortages of eggs and also of bread. And as we were driving around the city, from what we were able to ascertain, there's only one bridge that is now kind of being allowed to open to traffic moving back and forth. And so there's no question there are obviously real issues with the supply line, let alone if you're trying to import medicines from other countries. These, you know, some need to be stored in various conditions and moved in a certain way, and obviously all of that is feeling the effect of this war. There's no question. For now, it seems people do still have enough to eat, and they are able to, I won't say go about their daily lives. They're certainly not doing that. Most of them are staying at home. They're hunkered down, and they're waiting for all of this to end. But if this city is completely encircled by Russian troops, as is the very real fear, then it's not even a question of an all-out assault on the city from the air. You're talking about a siege, and of course, when you're talking about a siege, you're talking about a major humanitarian crisis, Anderson.
Yeah, Clarissa Ward, appreciate it.